Hello, everyone. Welcome back to this week's episode of Mocktail Minutes. This is Bailey.
And this is Brianna.
This week, I am drinking a Kevita. I think that's how you say it, the Kevita
That's how I say it.
one. I found these new ones at Target. It's a probiotic refresher sparkling drink. It's a mojito flavor.
Mm,
On my mojito kick right now, and it's really delicious.
that does sound good. I just have like my store brand lemon sparkling water, but I added like a little bit of like pink lemonade. I don't have anything fun this week.
Hey, okay. I tried to get some. There
Mhm.
was another one I tried to get, and then it had some weird herbs in it. I was like, I guess I should not
Oh,
do that.
yeah. Again, gotta stay away from the herbs
Yeah,
for now.
getting some probiotics in.
Yeah.
And I was a little nervous because I usually don't like the kombuchas or anything like that. So I was scared it's going to taste like that, but
Yeah.
it's really delicious.
It sounds good. I like
Yeah,
a good mojito flavor.
my favorite. All right. Well, this week we are talking about your hormones and how they affect your metabolism. So, your metabolic hormones. We're going to give a brief summary of each one. And these are not all of your hormones, they're just kind of the main hitters that we're going to cover. So, some of these you have heard us talk about, but we're just going to break it down to like the top ones that can be affecting your metabolism and even affecting weight loss.
Okay.
So, first one is insulin. So, if you've been listening for a while, you've heard us talk about these first two. But insulin, just a quick review, it is kind of like your fat storing hormone, but this doesn't mean it's a bad thing. It is basically kind of like a key that is needed for glucose to enter our cells and help regulate our blood sugar. It's secreted by the pancreas to allow the cells to uptake the glucose so that we can use that for energy and storage. So we need this process to happen for our body. However, too much insulin is what can lead to insulin resistance, metabolic syndrome, increased hunger, and cravings. So, this is why we always emphasize well, one of the reasons we emphasize balancing out your blood sugar so we aren't having insulin just constantly in our bloodstream hanging out. And
Mhm.
there are lots of things, I mean, you can do to help improve insulin sensitivity. So, how your body utilizes carbs. And this could be through like exercise, sleep, omega 3s, changing what you're eating. That can all impact how insulin is being produced and therefore how our body is utilizing those carbs too.
And just like a little note on insulin because it's anabolic. So that's where we get the whole like it's a fat storage hormone, like it builds up rather than breaks down. It's also needed to build your muscles as well. So if you're trying to improve like how your body reacts to the insulin it has, like how insulin sensitive it is, you're trying to improve like your muscle. It all plays a role. So strength training increases insulin sensitivity, allows your body to utilize that glucose better, and then also allows you to build and maintain muscles. So insulin's important. We don't want you to like be scared of it, but typically when we think of insulin, it's like a bad thing because everyone's walking around with like insulin insensitivity.
Yes. And I think as soon as we hear like fat storage, we feel like red flags go up.
Yeah.
But again, like if we didn't have insulin in our system, this is what like type 1 diabetes looks like. We
Yeah.
need this insulin to be able to utilize glucose.
Yeah.
And we need glucose so that way we have energy throughout the day so we can think.
Yeah. It's absolutely necessary.
So glucagon is like the friend and foe, insulin and glucagon. Glucagon, they don't really work well together. It comes into play when insulin kind of clears out of the system a little bit. So it is also produced by the pancreas, but glucagon has a little bit of an opposite effect of insulin. So it stimulates the breakdown of glycogen, which is simply your stored glucose in the liver, and it breaks down that glycogen into glucose, which helps raise your blood sugar levels.
Mhm.
Glucagon kind of helps promote that fat breakdown for energy. So this is one that we refer to as like a fat burner.
Yeah. And this is the one that's like keeping your blood sugar steady when you're in a fasted state. So, like overnight, when you're in between meals and you've kind of already used all the glucose that you already had from your previous meal, like glucagon is helping to break your energy out of storage, keep you feeling level, keep everything good. So, it's kind of like the opposite, if you will, the yin and yang. But again, if you aren't very good at storing your glucose, then you're not going to have a lot of glucose that you can use in these fasted times. And so that's like another problem.
And this is part of making your body more metabolically flexible so that you can use carbs quickly from the food we eat, but we also have that glucagon that is able to break down that glycogen from our stored energy. So it's kind of like becoming a hybrid car. You can either use gas real quick or you can use electricity on reserve. Or that opposite. I don't know how those cars work. I don't know.
I feel like that's right. But
but you get the point. You can either use quick energy or you can use your stored energy. So you're not having to rely on being able to sustain your day with having to need food every 2 hours.
Yes, like having to need, oh, I need to rely on the food. Like, no, because I have these storages in place. I can do that. And again, this is something we really work towards helping clients get to, because you have to work to get towards this place, especially if your body is just used to running off of whatever you put in it and not tapping into those fat stores. So there's that. The next one is going to be ghrelin. This is your hunger hormone, and it's released when the stomach is empty. And then it'll kind of stop being released when that stomach is stretched. So makes sense, right? It's your hunger hormone because your stomach needs some food in it. It's also released when your blood sugar is low. And it's the thing that kind of gets your brain thinking like, okay, it's time to eat. It's kind of like what stimulates you to be like, okay, what do I want for lunch today? You know, that's like ghrelin in your brain kind of like working together. So it's also stimulated with glucose, but like it's already kind of being stimulated, right? Because you're hungry. But if you have like a little bit of like simple glucose, like white carbs, high sugar foods, we're thinking like sodas, breads, chips, all the things that you have at a restaurant before you order the food, this kind of stimulates your hunger even more. So does that make sense?
Yeah. And like your ghrelin levels, they are going to should be higher right before you start eating if you are listening to your body. And this is one of the like internal calorie counters, right? Because it's telling us when to eat type of thing. And it also is a hormone that can help us decide, are we eating off emotions or are we eating off true hunger?
Yeah.
Because it's going to kind of slowly tell you when you're about to eat type of thing. Like you're going to start to feel, oh, I could eat feeling. And then it could change into, no, yeah, let's go eat. And then it's like my stomach is growling. And then it's like, I need food now. So it's that gradual progression as you release more ghrelin.
And that's just like your biological response, like your body being like, well, now you're going to eat because I need energy. So, and I feel like this is one we've kind of been taught like, oh, curb your appetite, or it takes away your craving or your hunger like cues. Like we are so out of touch with our hunger and fullness cues. And that doesn't help us, because then what does happen is people wait. They wait for it to be like, I'm hangry now. My blood sugar is too low. I'm just going to eat whatever I want as fast as I can because I'm starving.
I do see it too, where some people come and they're like, I'm just not hungry all day long. And that could be due to ignoring these hunger cues.
Mm-hmm.
So then eventually your body kind of just stops talking to you. It would be, I always say it like this, it would be like talking to someone and they just look at you.
Yeah.
Acknowledge you or anything. You're like, this is.
Hear me? What did you hear what I was saying?
And like that's what we do on the podcast. Like when we have funny internet and we notice the other person is just like staring, we're like, can you hear me? And they're like, no.
No, I'm sorry. I was checked out, or like I couldn't hear you.
Yes. And that's exactly like what a very simple way of what can happen with your hunger hormones. So if you're someone who feels like you're just never hungry, or it's like you aren't hungry throughout the day and then maybe at night you're hungrier, it could be you've been so conditioned to ignore that hunger. But hunger is a normal thing. It's just another one of those body signalings that we get. It's like our body telling us we have to pee. We're not going to be like, oh, nope, you peed too much yesterday. We're going to slow you down today. Like, that's not how our body works.
Like, slow down on the breathing. You've had enough oxygen. It's exactly. It's like the only bodily, I don't know, like a little message that we get that we're like, ooh, you know what? We're not going to listen to that. And so people are very out of touch with listening to this hunger hormone.
And if you're someone who's like, well, I am hungry all day long, then my question is, well, is your blood sugar balanced? What does that look like? That would be my first question. Like, is your blood sugar balanced? Are you eating throughout the day? There's so many other questions that come with it. So it's not that you can't trust it, it's that your body just needs a little bit of help to kind of get your hunger and satiety hormones in check.
And this is like another little like sidebar about it, knowing that it's kind of stimulated a little bit more with those like simple carbohydrates, and it stops when your stomach is stretched. If you're constantly trying to eat really low calorie and you're choosing the foods that are like, kind of simple carbs and like low calorie, you're never going to fully feel full. And maybe that's a reason why you're like, well, I can't trust myself. I'm just hungry all day. It's like, well, yeah, you're not doing enough to shut off that response of your body being like, I have enough, I have adequate energy right now.
So then that part of it, that hormone is your leptin. That's kind of like your satiety or fullness hormone. And it's actually produced by your fat cells. So this one works by telling your hypothalamus that there is enough food, and it helps prevent you from overeating.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there is such a thing called leptin resistance that occurs when the signaling kind of no longer triggers the brain to calm hunger hormones.
Mm-hmm.
So, like I said, it's produced by the fat cells. So then you might be like, okay, well, if I have more fat mass on me, I should have more satiety signaling, but not necessarily true, because we develop that leptin resistance. And this can be due to excess fat tissue. It can be due to inflammation, insulin resistance, genetics, dietary factors like sleep deprivation. All these things can contribute to leptin resistance, which is, like I said, your body just becomes less responsive to the effects of leptin, leading to like you don't have great appetite regulation, essentially.
Yeah, you just don't feel satiated. So it's like, oh, I'm never full. I could always like eat a little bit more. That is a real thing. And I feel like that's something that's not talked about enough either. And there really is people walking around with leptin resistance, feeling like I literally just think about food constantly all day. That's one of the things though, I feel like sometimes people might hear this and be like, that's me. That's me. I'm always thinking about food. And so it's like a walking through, making sure we've like dotted all of our I's, crossed all our T's, and made sure like, okay, are you adequately actually eating enough to make yourself feel full? If you are, okay, yeah, that might be something we can look into. But I do see some people being like, oh, that's me. I think about food all day. I have leptin resistance. I'm like, well, no, you're still only eating 1,200 calories. So that's the problem.
Yeah. And like we said, there's things that you can do this, because this is that second part of your internal calorie counters, to get back in tune with the ghrelin and the leptin responses. So even to like help counteract the leptin resistance, this looks like adding in whole foods, not necessarily thriving off of protein bars and protein chips all day long.
Yeah.
Or like looking at your physical activity, getting enough sleep, managing your stress. These parts can help reverse this leptin resistance as well.
And then that kind of brings us to CCK. So this is another satiety hormone, if you will. It's produced by the GI tract and the nervous system, and it stimulates the secretion of gastric and pancreatic acid. It slows gastric emptying and aids in digestion of different nutrients. It also increases the release of leptin. And this is important because if you are someone who has been struggling, maybe not eating a very balanced meal, maybe not eating enough protein and fat, you can really manipulate your leptin response by eating more protein and fat, because studies do show that a high protein and high fat diet, especially, I don't want to say high fat diet, but high omega-3s, so like what we think of as like that healthy fat, this can help stimulate CCK and help stimulate leptin, and then be like, okay, I'm satiated. This is why I always tell people, if you're eating a higher protein diet, I don't mean like bodybuilder, but if you're eating a high protein diet, it is very hard to overeat because you are going to be so satiated, and it's because of this hormone. You feel full. So it's really hard to just like overeat protein and fat. And specifically here, the amino acid that it's really linked to is glutamine. This is interesting too, because some people will supplement with glutamine to help lower like those sugar cravings. I don't know if any of you have heard that, but it's like, if you're constantly thinking about sugar, try like a glutamine supplementation, and that can help. It's because of this, but you can also get this from eating glutamine, which is where I would recommend you start instead of just like, oh, let's supplement with something. Like you could just eat glutamine.
Yeah.
And it's high in like, animal meats, cottage cheese.
Like your dairy products.
Yeah, dairy, spinach.
Like nuts and seeds would be.
Yeah, nuts and seeds. So you're eating glutamine all the time, and try it out. If you're used to having like, for example, if you have some Quest chips and a cottage cheese cup, they're probably the same calories. You're going to still feel hungry, most likely, after like a bag of Quest chips, and not as hungry after like a little cottage cheese cup. This is why.
It makes a difference. And that just goes back to those whole foods. Even thinking of fiber. I mean, there's bagels out there with like 35 grams of fiber. And you may be like, cool, I'm getting my fiber in for the day.
Yeah.
But honestly, I don't love them because they're highly processed. It's a processed form of fiber, usually to have that much fiber in a bagel, like they're adding stuff into it.
Yeah.
They are highly processed items.
Yeah, exactly. Food quality is very important. And I feel like we talk about that. Maybe we don't talk about it enough, but this is where it comes into play. Like you can eat the same calories with a highly processed diet and a more whole foods diet, and you're going to feel completely different. And your body is going to store fat differently. I'm not going to go into that, but calories don't always matter. It's more of the quality of your food, because what's going on with your absorption and your hormones and digestion and all this, it's different depending on what you have.
And I think that is a good point too, like how you mentioned the supplement. Like, yeah, you could supplement with it. And I feel like that is everyone's kind of like first, oh, I'll just add a supplement. That's easy. Yeah. You know what's also easy? Grabbing some cottage cheese, eating some chicken, eating a handful of walnuts. Yes, like you're going to get a bigger bang for your buck, and you have to break down that mindset barrier of I'm just going to throw in a supplement, because you don't need to do that. You can get this through your food.
And you should be, because you're lacking on, there's so many other things that these glutamine containing foods have in them that you're not getting from a supplement. And also, I don't know why we are like so fixated on fixing all of our problems by learning how to eat less food. Like that's it. The problem is we eat too much. I'm like, no, that's not the problem.
Yeah.
That's not the problem.
That's a whole nother story.
Oh yeah, I won't go there. But yeah, what else do we have? Cortisol,
that'd be another one. Cortisol is a stress hormone produced by your adrenals when your body just senses stress. And what's really unique about your body is it doesn't classify stress as being unique. It's not like, like sometimes we get stressed out. We come into work Monday morning and it's like, holy crap, we got quite the day. Emails piled up from Friday. We have a stress response. Sometimes we see a snake and we jump and run and scream, and we feel like we're about to get, attacked by a snake. Right. Or I have an irrational fear that it's like going to wrap around my neck and just kill me. I don't know why.
It's going to kill me.
That's what I always think when I see a snake. I'm like, it's just going to wrap around my body and just squeeze me to death. Like,
it's a constricting snake.
Terrible. That's all I can think about. I'm like, it's just going to wrap around me and just squeeze me.
That'll be the end.
I've seen snakes do it to themselves. Can you imagine doing it to me?
No, that would be horrible.
Yes.
So yeah, but it's funny because your body is going to recognize that fear of the snake wrapping around you and killing you. It's the same as those emails.
Yes.
Your body's just like, we're in a stress response. We need to do this. It doesn't know whether you are truly in a life or death situation.
Yeah. Think about it. Yeah. As like a time, like maybe your kid fell off the monkey bars or something, and your automatic response, like you go over there, you grab them. Or it's like those moments when you have that super strength when something happens, you're like, I don't know where that comes from. Yeah. You're having a stress response. And it's not just cortisol. I mean, you have adrenaline, epinephrine, norepinephrine, like you have all these other hormones, but you're having a stress response. Basically what we're saying is your body senses stress as stress, and that's it. And what happens is, so cortisol impacts your appetite because this hormone is triggering your heart rate and energy levels to increase, and adrenaline is being released. This is your fight or flight mechanism happening. It keeps us very safe, and it keeps us from getting killed by a snake wrapping around us.
Yes.
And like this is super beneficial when people are like hunters and gatherers, because they literally had to have this stress response happening.
Yeah.
We don't necessarily need that as much in our everyday life. We have more stressors coming from bills, relationships, all these areas. And I feel like we just don't recognize that as much. Or I feel like we also normalize stress in a way that it's like you're a weirdo for not having stress, or we
Yeah.
classify everything as stress. And it's like, are we actually stressed or are we overwhelmed? Are we stressed or are we just not managing our time wisely?
Yeah.
What's really happening?
But all of this increased cortisol, it can lead to being overweight. It can lead to weight gain, excess body fat. And then in turn, the body fat that you have plays a part in how much cortisol you release and what that's like. So again, this is where it's not calories in, calories out. How are you utilizing that fuel in your body? Are you storing it all as energy to be used as later? Or, that's, yeah, that's the bigger part of the picture. So stress.
And especially belly fat is the big thing that happens because stress is a major contributor to weight loss resistance and linked to belly fat accumulation, especially in women. And I see this, I have so many women that are like, I just can't get rid of this belly fat. And they're also very high stress running individuals. And maybe it's not so much high stress, like lifestyle type things. Like you could have a great marriage, like kids are amazing, you love your job, but are you working out 6 times a week? Are you under eating? Are you doing too much high intensity? Like, what do those areas look like? Because that is going to contribute to stress on the body.
The next one is dopamine. So this is your reward hormone. It's released when we eat food. It's also released with any type of addiction. And I think this commonly gets misconstrued as like, oh, people are just super addicted to food. Like, well,
we all get a dopamine hit.
We all, yeah, when we need food, it's probably because it's like our body's like, good for you. You ate. Excellent. We love that we survived today. Right. But this is where I feel like people kind of struggle because the processed carbs and extra sugar and all of that, it really does create this large spike in dopamine. And then it's consistently something that you want to do. This is where people are kind of feeling like I'm an emotional eater. I don't really know how to handle this. And so it's like, let's find a way to manage our emotions that feel good during and after. And it's probably not with food, and it's probably not with alcohol, and it's probably not with a lot of the things that you do for that in the moment reward. But it does play a part in how someone is feeling, how someone is eating, how someone is craving food that a lot of people don't realize.
So. And this is a big reason to why we focus on in Metabolism Makeover. We ask you about your wins every week when we do check-ins, because we want to give you these we want to give you these dopamine hits that are going to last, where a lot of times, like when it comes to diets or workout plans or whatever it is that you're doing for weight loss or anything like that, like we see the scale, if it goes down, we do get a quick dopamine hit and it does feel good. And that's why oftentimes we think, if I just lose the weight, then I will be happy. But we have like a baseline happy. We're going to go higher some days, we're going to go lower, but we're always going to come back to baseline. And the thing that happens with dopamine is that eventually we kind of down regulate dopamine receptors. So now it's like we need more to get that same feeling. So it all comes back to even life things where it's like, maybe it's something that used to make you super happy and get the feel good feelings, but now you're like, I don't really care anymore type of thing.
I need more of it. That's
same thing that can happen with like processed foods, especially carbs, sugar. Think of, drugs, that it's part of that addiction type thing, because you need more to get the same effect. You need more to get the same reward type of feeling.
Exactly. And so this is why, it's important, I feel like, to really look at your overall reward system and how you're doing it. And, just think about it. Yes, it's not all food, but this is where the whole, like, I'm addicted to sugar, it comes from. And then there's people who are like, there's no way to be addicted. And I feel like there's like a medium. There are people who are very like, this is how I make myself happy, and you're addicted to making yourself happy. And so it's like, what channels you use to do that.
You find you're happy.
Yeah, is important. So,
and starting your day with a blood sugar balancing meal plus a dopamine hit can be super beneficial. And like, take a minute to think about your morning. Like, what is the first feeling you feel? What's the first thing you do? Like, if you wake up and the first thing is like, oh, my alarm's going off, I gotta get the kids up, we're running late, where it's like chaos, then it's normally that your day is gonna feel that way. But if you're like, all right, let's have a good day, we're gonna wake up on time, we're gonna get breakfast in, that's gonna be a
Do
reward.
things that make me feel good. I'm setting myself up for the day. I'm making myself good.
Next one's like thyroid hormones.
Yeah.
So we've kind of mentioned these before. And so your thyroid hormones are T3 and T4. They are produced by the thyroid gland, and they essentially help regulate your metabolism by influencing nearly every function
Yeah.
within your body. So I feel like hypothyroidism and hyperthyroidism is very common. Like people hear a lot about it, but it is super important to note because even like hypothyroidism, if you're not eating enough carbs, like that's going to be super important. Carbs are important in the process of converting T3 and T4 and support your thyroid. If you're not supporting your thyroid, then we have more of the low thyroid function. It can lead to weight gain and difficulty losing weight because you're down regulating your metabolism.
Right.
So we have to support the thyroid. It's going to be a regulator for all things when it comes to your metabolism.
Yeah, it's like the thermostat, it's how well or how not well am I like using this energy? Because again, carbohydrates help the conversion of T3, T4. That is really what helps your thyroid run. And again, it impacts your metabolic rate. So if your thyroid is sluggish, you are not burning that energy as effectively as you could be because your thyroid, it's sluggish. It's not working as well as it could. And so this is why you will see, an underactive thyroid weight gain and overactive weight loss, because it really is manipulating how much energy you use, how quickly, and that's calories. That's a unit of energy. So again, this is why you could eat the same amount of calories as somebody else and be the same build and the same everything and the same body fat and all the same, but you guys look completely different or you metabolize nutrients different. Your thyroid plays a huge role in that. So
and when we say your metabolism, it's not just about weight loss and weight gain. Your metabolism is basically how you take the foods you eat and use those nutrients to make your body work. So it goes far beyond just
how many calories am I burning? Yeah, no, it's like your whole machine. How is your whole machine running? That's what we're talking about.
Yeah. And then estrogen and progesterone. So these ones, again, I feel like we've heard a lot about, but just to touch base on them, these are your sex hormones that influence your body composition and fat distribution. So we did dive into these on our episode on your metabolism with aging, but yeah. So you can go back and listen to that one for more detailed information. But basically, changes in estrogen and your progesterone levels, such as what happens during menstruation, pregnancy, menopause, that is what can affect your appetite, your metabolism, weight regulation.
And for women, we have it a little bit different than men. If you're still menstruating, these fluctuations in these two hormones really manipulate how you're storing and burning fat, how your energy is, everything throughout the month. And it's different, which is why also just plugging numbers into a phone and using that as a guide may not be working for you because you have different needs at different times of the month. Your hunger is regulated differently, your fat storage, all this because of these hormones. And then on the flip side, what? No, go ahead.
There's some things I've been seeing because my pages are just filled with pregnancy information nowadays. But it can take after you have a baby, it can take 2 years for your hormones to regulate again, which I think is super interesting because we are so focused on, we got to lose that postpartum weight right away. And I already know, even for me as a dietitian, like I do kind of have thoughts around them. Like, okay, what is that going to look like for me? And it is a little nerve wracking, but your body's going through lots of changes. I mean, you just took 9 months to build a whole freaking human. And then you birth it and your hormones just plummet. But yeah, it can take 2 years for them to get regulated again. So it's really normal to feel a little off.
Yeah. And it can be even a little bit longer than that if you breastfeed for a
Yeah.
certain duration of time. So yes, I know it's frustrating. And yeah, we all have this like measurement of success. Like, how fast can I bounce back? And it's like, all right, let's give ourselves a break. I
Mhm.
made a whole human. Okay. That will one day be walking around. Okay. So go me. I'm going to give myself a break. But yeah.
Yeah.
And then on the flip side, we have testosterone. This is, although it's primarily like the sex hormone, women also produce testosterone. They have it too. They just have it in smaller amounts.
Yeah,
This
like you
helps.
think about it as male sex hormone.
Yeah, we primarily we think about like, oh, males have testosterone, like women still have them too, just like men have some estrogen and progesterone. Like, yeah. So testosterone helps to regulate muscle mass, fat distribution, metabolism, etc. This is why men can get bulky, women cannot. It is this hormone that's going to dictate that. This is also why men have an easier time building muscle and losing fat. And
Yes.
usually they don't see issues. Usually, I'm not gonna, but they don't see issues with losing body muscle or in like having a hard time losing weight until they're a little bit older when their testosterone is naturally just starting to drop more, like the late 40s and 50s and 60s. And then you see men being like, I can't lose weight. This was never an issue before. I'm like, yeah, just your testosterone.
And I
Oh,
do work with a lot of couples together. I'm always like, that's going to be the most annoying part is that your husband is probably going to lose weight quicker than you. And
yeah.
it's always that he can literally stop drinking soda and he's lost 40 pounds type of thing.
At 100%. It's always that, or it's like he goes to the gym once a week now and suddenly he looks ripped and I've been working out 4 or 5 times a week. What the heck? So just that's
It's just part of it. Like, don't let it be something to just piss you off all the time.
yeah,
Maybe, yeah, let it, but light a fighter under your rear end
yeah,
and let it be something empowering. Be like, okay, well, I am a woman. You know what? He can't grow a human, but I
yeah,
can. Or he doesn't have these cycles that go through days, weeks, months. Men have a 24-hour cycle. Women don't
24.
do that. You think the men can handle it? Sorry if you're a guy listening, but
They can't. They know. My husband is now like he's dropped his pride enough to be like, yeah, I couldn't do it. I'm like, well, you're welcome. Just over here shouldering the world.
yes, women's hormones are completely different. And again, like we've talked about, don't use that as a crippling thing.
Yeah.
Use it to educate yourself more. Use it as a more of a reason to balance your blood sugar. Balance your blood sugar can help with your hormones.
Yeah. And again, yeah, we were talking when were we talking about this? About how we should have labeled certain episodes as like you're not
Oh
doomed.
yeah,
Don't look at
not
it as
doomed.
that. Yeah. You're not doomed just because you're a female and you have these hormones and this is going on. Start really thinking critically about like, okay, what is everything doing in my body right now? What do I really need to lose weight? Because if you are, in your 30s and you're trying to lose weight the way you did in your 20s, well, everything is a lot different. And now you know why. So it's like, maybe I need to do something else. Cause I hear that constantly with women, like, this is how I've always lost weight. And like, now I can't, and I'm broken. I'm like, you're not broken. It's just, that doesn't work for you anymore.
And it could have been the built-up of all the different diets that you've tried in the past.
Yeah.
Maybe they've wrecked your metabolism a little bit, and now your body just needs some love. And that's okay too. It's not your fault, but it's time we just support your body more. This actually reminded me. So, speaking of cortisol, so I got my ID renewed, and my last one, I think, would have been 6 years ago. I was drinking more, I was in college, like things did not look the same as they do now. And I didn't realize like how much I've changed, but I put my pictures side by side and like Josh was like, I don't know. He was like, I don't know really how to say this without offending you, but your face looks less round.
You're like, thank you. That's because I manage my cortisol better.
Yes. So, and I never even realized it, but I do know that I've been trying to put in more work to decreasing stress, like balancing out my cortisol levels, and I haven't necessarily tested them, but I can feel the difference. And I was able to literally see the difference in my face from those pictures at the age I am now compared to 6 years ago, which was crazy. And at first I was super annoyed that my ID expired right now as I'm pregnant. I was
Yeah.
like,
But that says a lot. It says that like, oh my gosh, my face is slimmer now when I'm pregnant than it was then. Oh, I can always tell in my face Like right now, I'm in a very stressful time in my life. I always tell like, I'm like, okay, my face feels puffy. That is like my telltale sign of like, am I
Yep.
truly managing my stress?
Yeah,
No.
and something we don't think about, but that is something I noticed even like looking back at some of my high school pictures. My face was rounder, but I was super inflamed, and I've always been a very stressed person. That I'm a type A dietitian. That's
That's
just how it's
our
always been.
destiny.
And I mean, I didn't find out I was allergic to dairy till I was 18 years old. I had lots of inflammation going on in my body. So yeah,
Mhm.
I always just had a rounder face.
And honestly, that's something I see too, like with clients when they really start to, okay, ignore calories. We're not looking at calories. We're not looking at how little we can. And they start focusing on more like whole foods and a whole food diet. They lose a lot of inflammation. And it's like, oh, the scale hasn't gone down, but I'm noticing like my face is less puffy, my arms are less puffy. Like I just feel less inflamed. I'm like, yeah. That's a huge one. There's a lot of people walking around with a lot of inflammation thinking, oh God, I have to lose 30 pounds. And it's like, wow, a lot of that might just be inflammation.
And it makes a huge difference in even how you feel, how you look. So it's not something to just stop brushing off stress, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. Oh, I don't know if we ever gave it an update because we talked about how my element, I've increased my sodium.
Oh, yeah.
It worked. Like my ankles were less swollen with doing more sodium. And that's on experimenting with electrolytes, and it's fine.
That's fun. See,
Mhm.
when well, there's probably a lot of doctors who would have been like, decrease your salt.
Yeah. But I did it like the next day, like 2 days in a row, and I felt a little tingly. So I'm like, okay, I think I need to find a balance between 200 and 1,000. So
Yeah.
that's what information I gather.
So far, scientists, this is where I'm at so far. But no.
But it did help. So basically, it tells my body that, well, it tells me that I need a little more sodium right now, and that's okay. And that's just what it looks like to listen to your body. Just a little side note.
I love that.
Yes. That is all we have today for you. Your basics on hormones and your metabolic health. Again, you are not doomed. We hope you found this episode helpful, and we'll be coming back next week.
All right. Bye.
Bye, everyone.